I think we may have what could be the most significant release for Ollama in a long time, which you can find out more about at Ollama.com. I'm thinking it may be one of the top 5 or so most significant new features. But when I watched the Discord for what folks were excited about, I think they were looking at the wrong thing. They saw the top item, the headliner, which is about a new model, Gemma, from Google. But the exciting thing here is just one of the line items down below. The line is support for BERT and Nomic BERT embedding models. This is huge, and it's a foundational feature that allows Ollama to be used in far more places than ever before. It's the feature I begged the team to deliver on in August, and it's finally here. Embedding is all about creating a vector that represents the semantic meaning of whatever data you provide the model. The most common use case for embedding is RAG search. RAG lets you find relevant content to your question so that you can provide the model with the right inputs to come up with a good answer. Even with larger contexts of today's latest models, RAG is still incredibly important to keep the model on point and to move with speed. I just heard a podcast today talking about how RAG isn't very good because it only delivers a few hopefully relevant fragments of the source text.
Well, I actually do think right now it will do a better job than RAG does on that, because right now the problem is that you're essentially scoring the text using embeddings, but it misses the nuance, it misses the themes, it misses the sort of general hierarchy of the knowledge in.
Sure, that's the hello world of RAG, but there are so many examples of RAG that use those fragments and larger sections plus summaries of summaries to try to make what the database delivers more relevant. I even made a code sample in the Ollama repo that shows this using a portion of the collection of the Chicago Institute of Art, and that was back in September. When you build out a vector database for RAG, you provide a lot of content that first needs to be embedded. That embedding, along with the source text, is stored in the database. When you ask a question, that question is also converted to an embedding. Your question embedding is the same size as all the other embeddings for all your content. So it's actually very easy to mathematically compare the embeddings to find the ones closest or most similar to your question. And often a vector database can do that comparison with millions or more other embeddings in way less than a second. As a side note, there are a bunch of different vector databases out there that you can use in your applications. I can't really say what's different about them. The main differentiators seem to be around how easy they are to use in Python versus TypeScript, or maybe how easy they are to host outside of an application, or how they serialize the information to disk. I'm not really sure there's a big difference in how fast they can filter information, but there may be a difference in their maximum capacity. I think this would be a good thing for me to look at in a future video. Let me know if that will be interesting to you. Ollama has supported embedding for a long time, but it only used the regular models like Llama 2 and Mistral and everything else on Ollama.com in the past. This will work, but it turns out to be not super accurate, and even worse, it's really slow. So whenever someone asked, I would usually recommend not using Ollama embeddings and instead use the Hugging Face APIs that you can run locally to do that embedding. But every time I did that, I had to read the same article to figure out how to set it up. It tended to be hard to do. And so most just went to the OpenAI embedding model instead. So let's take a look at how to do this with Ollama now that we have version 0.1.26. First, let's try running this on the command line. I'm using curl with a simple phrase. And there's our embedding, super fast. But hopefully your documents are a bit more complicated than this. Normally, you don't want to embed an entire document all at once. Instead, you need to split it up into chunks and then embed each of those. That way, you can supply just the relevant parts of the document to the model. This isn't just about context size. You need to provide info that makes sense for the question. There are a lot of strategies about how large the chunks need to be and also how much overlap there should be between them. What do you summarize? And should you also summarize topics across multiple sections along the way? But that's a topic for another video. So here I have some code that splits a text file into 500-word chunks. This is using Bun. And then I'm going to feed it the text of War and Peace, which is about 550,000 words, or about 1,100 of our 500-word chunks. Then I'll loop through each one and embed them using Nomic embed text. So let's run it. I skipped to the end, and the process took about 50 seconds to run. which is super impressive. Looking at the logs for Ollama, it looks like each 500-word chunk took about 40 milliseconds to process. Let's compare that to what Llama 2 would take. I'll just swap out the models and run it. Each chunk takes about 1.4 seconds. So in the time Nomic Embed did all of War and Peace, Llama 2 did 35 chunks. All of War and Peace will take Llama 2 25 minutes. That's a pretty huge difference. Let's take a look at the code in Python to do the same thing, in case you're interested. And to run that takes, well, just about the same amount of time as the JavaScript version, about 50 seconds. Most of the code in both examples is reading in the file and chunking up the text. The actual embed is a single line of code that takes 40-ish milliseconds to run. I am super excited about what we'll be able to do with embedding now that it runs reliably well in Ollama. And not just reliable, but super fast. The other features in 0.1.26 include support for Gemma from Google, which I'll take a look at soon. It looks like the team's still working with Google to make the model more reliable on its responses. And there's some cleanup for Windows support, so that's great. Oh, regarding Windows, I saw a comment just now pointing to issues with the way I set up environment variables. The recommendation from the team is to use system variables, but it was suggested that that might not be the right solution. I'll take a look at that and see if I need to make a correction. That video was made when Ollama Windows existed for a day, so I wouldn't be surprised if something was off. Anyway, anytime anyone finds a problem with one of my videos, I am super happy to replace it with the corrected content. It has to be credible and repeatable though, so don't just claim that bunnies can fly without some way for me to verify it. But if there really is a way they can fly, I would update the appropriate video right away. Though this may be the first time I mention bunnies in any video of mine. Maybe you know what I'm actually talking about there. Well, thanks so much for watching. I hope you are as excited about Ollama 0.1.26 as I am. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I love the comments, and they've been particularly active more recently. And as for cadence on videos, I'm still figuring that out. I'm going to experiment with the idea of making a video like this every Monday and Thursday. And then lots of shorts based on that content every day. We'll see how that goes. My wife and daughter are definitely feeling the impact of 3 a week. Again, thanks so much for being here. Goodbye.